This week I got to talk with Emily Carpenter about her new horror thriller, Gothictown. If you love moving to a remote city for a reason that seems too good to be true and then getting scared once you're there, you're going to love this one. Here's the synopsis. The email message that lands in Billie Hope's inbox seems like a gift from the universe. For $100, she can purchase a spacious Victorian home in Juliana, Georgia, a small town eager to boost its economy in the wake of the pandemic. She can leave behind her cramped New York City rental and some painful memories. Plus, she'll get a business grant to open a new restaurant in a charming riverside community laden with opportunity. After some phone calls and one hurried visit, Billie and her husband and daughter are officially part of the Juliana Initiative. The town is everything promised, and between settling into her lavish home and starting a new restaurant, Billie is busy enough to dismiss misgivings. Yet those misgivings grow. There's something about Juliana, something off-kilter and menacing beneath its famous Southern hospitality. No matter how much Billie longed for the family to come here, she's starting to wonder now and whether they'll ever leave. This book gets wild. It is creepy. It has all the small town vibes and really plays with how much Southern hospitality isn't always so hospitable. That being said, let's hear from Emily. I am super excited to be with Emily Carpenter today talking about Gothictown, which I feel like any listeners are going to be excited about a book with that title. So thank you for joining, Emily.
Thank you for having me, Kate. I appreciate it. I'm very excited as well. And yeah, that was a good title. I don't always come up with titles that good.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Was Gentle Juliana ever a title idea?
Honestly, I called this like from the moment I wrote chapter 1, this thing was called
cool.
Town, which again, titles don't always come that easily to me. So, when Kensington bought it, they were like, I don't know, we'll talk about the title. And I was thinking, come on, you guys, this is a great title. Yeah. So, I don't know that there was any real serious discussion. So
nice.
Yeah.
That works too. That's awesome. You just knew.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get to know you a little bit before we talk a little bit about the book. So you've written a lot of books, but what was your moment when you were like, I want to write a book or I want to be an author? What was that like for you?
So I think I wanted to be an author probably since I was a kid, because I was a huge reader. The library was like heaven to me. That was my happy spot. Always nose in a book, in the bathtub, walking around. Yes. So I dreamed of being an author, but as a kid, I didn't know what that meant. Really, I thought that meant you had to live in New York City and know fancy people. And I didn't. I lived in Alabama and I did not know any fancy people. So it didn't feel like an accessible dream to me. Even as I went into college, I thought I enjoyed acting as well. I did a lot of theater in high school and college. And I thought, I really wanted to be an actor. That dream sort of overrode being a writer. And so I pursued that a little bit in my early adult years. But then I got into, I worked for 2 soap operas for CBS television when I lived in New York briefly. And that kind of got me into the writing because I had to read the scripts. That was part of my job. So then I sort of kind of married this like love of acting and love of writing. And I thought, I really want to write movies. And this was in the 90s. So I kind of attempted that for a while. That proved to be a very hard business to get into, especially if you didn't live in LA, which I didn't. And so by that time, I'm like having a family, I'm raising kids, I'm At that, I mean, really in my 30s and 40s, I was still kind of floundering around for like, where do I belong in this? Like, what is my niche? What is my
Mm-hmm.
path? And so it took me a while to sort of pivot to oh, maybe I could write a book and it
Mm.
might be a little bit of a more accessible career for me. And that turned out to be true. Yeah. So
That's
I didn't
awesome. Yeah,
write,
that one worked out.
yeah, I didn't write my first book until I was in my late 40s.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. So I did see in your bio though that you've been an actor, a producer, a screenwriter. Did any of those or do any of those things and those experiences influence your writing now?
Absolutely. And I will say, just to clarify, like all of those things were kind of aspiring for me.
Mm.
Like
Mhm.
just to reiterate, I never felt like I was like, oh, okay, this is where I belong. I'm an actor or I'm a
Mhm.
producer or a screenwriter. But like now I do feel this way. Like I feel like I found my place. But yeah, I think acting, I mean, it's all storytelling, right?
Right.
And I think I do tend to write books that are more cinematic in terms of, I hope they're very visual and
Mm. Mhm.
the world building, even though it's our contemporary recognizable world. Um,
Mhm.
I do feel like I lean towards the very atmospheric and kind of building that cinematic feeling of you're really there.
Yeah.
So I think that has helped me just in a real tangible way. I use screenplay outlines to write my
Mm.
books. I use
Nice.
uh, there's a book called it's Sid Field's screenplay, and he lays out this very accessible outline. It's a 3 act outline, and I use that for all of my books just to make sure that
Nice.
they're not heading off on rabbit trails, that they're heading towards plot points that are keeping
Right.
people engaged in the pacing and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, so do you kind of, from what you're saying there, do you just plot out like some of the plot points, but you're not like heavily outlining necessarily?
Yeah, I call them tent poles.
Yeah,
They hold up
yeah.
the tent, but they leave room for discovery as I'm
Yep.
writing if I need to change or I have a great, epiphany or inspiration. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I lay out those like tent poles of act one, the turning point that leads into
Mm.
break into act two. The midpoint is very important to me.
Mhm.
And I think in suspense thrillers, it's a very important moment. The break
Yes.
into act three. Yeah. So I've got tons of room to like
Mhm.
come up with something great.
Yeah. Yeah,
Always have
totally.
room for that.
And is that Save the Cat then? Is that what that is, I think? Possibly?
Save the Cat is a little different.
Okay.
It's a little more specific.
Okay.
It drills down into each plot point a little more.
Mhm.
I have found Save the Cat is too constricting for
Yeah.
me.
Mhm.
Um, I get like don't I get those don't fence me in
Yeah.
feelings.
Yeah, you don't want that when you're trying to be creative.
No, but I
Yeah.
have a lot of friends who actually love using Save the Cat and
Right.
I just think it's a
Oh yeah,
different.
everybody's that's what I said or that's what I started realizing when I started talking with authors. I was realizing how much there's not just one way to write a book, but then also there's not even like just 100. There are like thousands of ways to do it. So it's just whatever ends up working for you.
Yeah, for sure. And you have to trust that process.
Yeah, that whole part. Is there something that draws you to reading or well, maybe reading too, but to writing thrillers, mystery, and suspense?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. I the first book I ever wrote was kind of a romance. It wasn't really a technically it was not a romance, but it was kind of a romantic story.
Mm.
Um, and I had a lot of fun writing it. I did not end up being able to get an agent with that book. And so when I was thinking about what I was going to write next, I really did think about, you know, what books and movies do I gravitate towards, and have I always gravitated towards?
Mm.
And the truth was, even as a kid, I loved mysteries, and I loved things that had like a touch of horror and,
Yeah.
kind of dark and kind of scary and kind of foreboding. And so I realized, oh, that's what I like to read and watch. And so I probably should write that. But it felt
Yeah.
very intimidating to me because I didn't know how to construct a mystery that felt complicated.
Right.
Um, yeah. So
Yeah. There's a lot going on
yeah.
typically.
Yeah. I was like, well, how do you drop the clues in? And I
I
will say,
know.
I still don't know. If I had to teach a class on that, on how to write a mystery and how to set up the clues and all that, I wouldn't know. I would just be like, you feel your way through it,
Yes.
and you edit a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just work on it until it's something.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's awesome. Do you do any like character work before you start writing, or do you kind of get to know the characters while you're writing?
I think it's both. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's both. I've been talking a lot recently about, it's not really a superstition, but I'm pretty strange about, I got to have the right name,
Mm.
especially for my main character, but for my whole cast. Like I
Yeah.
have the exact right name that kind of conveys everything I want this character to be. So that takes a while. Um, but also what you just said, it also takes actually writing the book to figure out
Mm-hmm.
who these characters are. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't yeah, I find myself starting with some half-formed ideas, and then I get to the end of the book and I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is what this character is about, and this is what," and I feel like I'm on some solid ground. I'm like, okay, now I know what I'm writing about and what this
Yeah.
person is. But it does, it just takes getting through the story.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah.
With Gothic Town, what was the inspiration for the story?
So I, way back in like 2016, 17, I remember coming across stories in the news about towns, US towns, that were really wanting to boost their economy and, invite mostly young people, or there wasn't as much remote working, but there was some going on then. But I remember reading, Topeka, Kansas was offering, help with rent, or, different little economic incentives. And
Mm.
I think, like, you know, I think I'd always been really interested in like that feeling of, because other than sort of my stint in New York City for those 3 years, I've always lived in the South. And
Mm.
so I do kind of fantasize a little bit about like, what would it be like to just pick up like and move somewhere totally
Yeah.
different? I think everybody has that fantasy to some degree. Like
Yeah.
city dwellers are like, we're going to move to the country and open a B&B.
Yes.
Or people from the country are like, I'm moving to the city.
Yeah.
Everyone, I think, has that kind of fantasy of starting over and clean slate and,
Mhm.
even moving abroad. And anyway, so, I was mulling over this idea. And then, of course, the pandemic happened and we're all stuck in our houses and like
Yes.
fantasizing about getting out of our house. And remote working becomes like really the thing. And then I see this article about this is what did it. I saw an article about this little town medieval village in Italy offering villas for, €1. And I think there's been recently kind of another story about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is definitely a village full of vampires looking for new blood. There's no doubt
Right.
in my mind that place is haunted or there's something bad going on.
Yes.
Yeah, and I just thought, oh, I can pivot this story into being a Southern town, make it very Southern Gothic, and
Mhm.
all of this works. And it just kind of tumbled out of me after
Yeah.
that.
I do remember seeing those during the pandemic and being like, really? Like it, I don't even think it was Sweden, but if there was even one where I was like, really? We could just go live there. It was so random.
It was so random and like again, like so easy. Like
Mhm.
there's got to be something behind this or some strange.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how I felt seeing it. I was like, there it has to be something about this that is too good to be true, which is
Correct.
definitely what happens in Gothictown. And did you kind of like you definitely explore too good to be true like at length. So was that kind of like really intriguing to do as like a theme, like thinking
Yeah,
things are
for
better
sure.
than they are?
Yeah, and I wanted it to be something so big that was sort of like I don't want to give away too much here,
I
but
know.
I am, but I really did. I was very attracted to the idea of like a whole town
Mhm.
that's in on the secret.
Yeah.
And I I was very inspired by Shirley Jackson's The Lottery, that short
Mhm.
story, where this whole town is has this very uh macabre tradition that they don't talk about. They don't question,
Yeah.
they do it every year
Mhm.
and it's horrifying. I love that. And
Yeah.
even like watching WandaVision, that idea that
Mm,
whole town
yes.
is
Yep.
in on the secret and you're trying to figure out like what the heck is going on. I That's
Mhm.
really fascinating to me.
Yeah.
More fun than I guess one villain that's out to
Yes.
get
Yeah. It is, and it's like it felt really claustrophobic because you really can't trust anyone is how it feels. It's just kinda, like, closing in on you. Do you think any of that was, like, also related to how it was kind of pandemic related story? Because as I was reading it, I was like, it was also, like, we all felt so claustrophobic going through it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think with Billie, my main character, living in New York City, and she's got this 6-year-old daughter, I thought a lot because I lived in an apartment in Manhattan, um, back in the 90s, but I didn't have a kid and I didn't have to homeschool or work
Mhm.
remotely or all that. And so I did think a lot about like how intense that experience must have been for
Oh,
those
yeah.
people in
Yeah.
really not just in New York, but really any city,
Right.
or an apartment building, just
Mhm.
very
Yeah, and
difficult.
it made the appeal of going to the country even bigger at that point.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And it was
She's
like there were so many restaurants that closed down, especially in like New York and LA. I was thinking about that too as I was reading it. Like it just was the reality for people who'd been really successful in things.
right. Yeah. I read a really interesting story in I think it was the New York Times about a
Mhm.
really successful restaurateur who just was like, I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
this was great, and that's heartbreaking.
Mhm. It was. It really was. I wanted to interrupt this episode really quickly. I have a goal of monetizing Bookwild, but I would love to do it without having to have ads in the podcast. And one way that I can do that is through my Patreon community. For those who don't know, Patreon is a community platform that allows creators to share what they're creating behind a paywall. And so that means exclusive content or early releases. The Bookwild Patreon has 2 tiers. The first tier is the bookish tier, and at that tier you get all of the episodes out a day early, and you get access to our private community chat where we can talk about anything book related or TV shows or movies. The second tier is the Bookwild tier, and it includes everything from the first tier but also Bookwild's backlist book club. So this year I've been wanting to also still read more backlist, even though I read plenty of arcs, and Bookwild's backlist book club felt like the perfect way to do that. We meet on Sundays. We are international right now, so Sundays are the best way to do it. And we meet on Zoom and we all pick a book and we talk about it, and then we talk about everything else we read during the month, and then we pick another book for the next month. So it's been so much fun so far, and we'd love to have you join the book club. So if you'd like to support the Bookwild podcast, you can go to the Patreon link in the show notes and you can sign up for whichever tier interests you. And if you're looking for a free way to support the show, if you can like and review it on whichever platform you listen to, that helps so much. So the other kind of funny thing is there's like Southern hospitality happening, but kind of in the way that we see it on, like, I don't know if you watch Southern Charm or there was something else that made me think of, but kind of in the way where you're saying one thing, but you also like mean another thing. So how did you kind of like approach working that into the creepiness of it too?
Yeah, I just love it. It's like I explained to my northern friends, we all laugh about, and I'm sure you've heard just the difference in the, oh, bless your heart.
Yes.
Like sometimes it is sincere and
Yep.
truly bless your heart. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it has a hint of snark and
Yes.
it doesn't mean something nice.
No.
I love that about the whole Southern way of being and the manners and the politeness, and it's very much a code you have to break. And I love the
Yeah.
idea of Billie being this like native New Yorker who's like run a business. She's a tough cookie. She says what she thinks, and she's like trying to give these people the benefit of the doubt and kind of
Mm-hmm.
fit in, but she really doesn't. She doesn't fit
Right.
in because she's a straight shooter and like she doesn't know what to do with
Yes.
So but yeah, the politeness, their politeness and their hospitality definitely hides not just snarkiness, it hides some darker
Big secrets.
motivations. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Um, with those like darker themes, like you're saying, there's also kind of like control versus community, or like what an actual community would be like versus what is just trying to control outsiders or anyone. So what
Yeah.
was it like kind of exploring that too with this plot?
Yeah. I always like to say, like, my writing, I feel like my books can be really enjoyed on 2 different levels. Like, if you
Mhm.
just want a great story with some good plot twists and reveals and, just a good suspense story, I feel like I have written that for you.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if you want some deeper themes, they are there because I'm
Mhm.
always interested in exploring something that is meaningful to me or something that's on my mind. So yeah, that whole idea of, yeah, we're trying to preserve our community, and the way
Mhm.
we do that is this one approach, which
Mhm.
obviously I don't agree with. Rather
Right.
than, I think the way that you actually do preserve a community is to allow it to grow and
Right.
allow people to progress in the way they progress.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, that can apply to anything. It can
Mm-hmm.
apply to, like, I'm a mom of kids who have grown up and they're leaving the nest, and so I have a choice to, like, try to keep things the way they've been and maneuver and finagle and, or
Right.
I can just let the birds fly free
Yes.
and give them freedom, and if they want to come back to the nest, they do.
Yeah. That's a
It,
good, healthy way to look at it.
yeah. Yeah. Well,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, the people of Juliana aren't that healthy,
They're
I
not
guess.
very healthy.
No.
It
No,
also kind of worked for me on a level of too, like the more insular you are in your community, like you just accept that like this is something we just do, and like that like none of them are questioning it because they're kind of in an echo chamber together.
for sure. And I mean, we see that all the time. If you're
Hmm.
like in any kind of community that feels isolated or that
Hmm.
sort of keeps outsiders out, that whole isolationist theme
Hmm.
that we've heard recently, um,
Yes.
a lot of, yeah, I think there's a danger there. And
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
having those barriers up to just thinking outside the box and
Right.
maybe welcoming different ideas that are different than your own.
Right. Totally. So there are also some supernatural horror elements. I won't say anything more than that. There's some. Do you ever freak yourself out when you're writing about those parts?
No, that's my favorite thing to
Oh,
write
that's
about.
good.
I'm like, no, I'm like not scared at all
Yeah,
of
that's
that
amazing.
stuff. Like, yeah, and this honestly, this was the first time, all of my books kind of walk that line for the most
Hmm.
part. Maybe not every one of them, but there's always a little bit of that hint of spookiness of like, ooh,
Hmm.
But this was the first time I had an editor say to me, um, we really want to lean into these horror elements. And
Mm.
and by horror, I think she meant the supernatural like elements of it.
Hmm.
Like, um, so that was really exciting to me. And I love
Hmm.
that. Like, I mean, it's Scooby Doo all over
Right.
again. It's
Right.
like, is there a monster? Is there really a monster? Or is it a guy with a mask?
Right.
Is this like, am I am I contacting the spirit world, or am I just, or have I just had an insomnia and I'm overworked and I'm a little
Hmm.
stressed out? Like,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or have
And
I
even
drunk
like the possibility that like being sleepless, you're like, maybe I'm closer to that realm.
possibly? I mean,
Yeah.
some of those defenses go down, and
Hmm.
like I'm fascinated by all that. And look, you read Stephen King and he goes like right into that realm.
Yep.
And that's not what I'm doing as much. I'm more like walking that fine line of, is it or isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely what it feels like through the whole book. It also, though, feeds into the Gothictown title. It does have those very like Southern Gothic vibes, but it also has like really realistic vibes. Like we are kind of in the present. We're a little bit in the past. So how did you approach bringing those two things together?
So to me, and this is where I get a little didactic here, but
It's
to
okay.
me, like the Gothic and the Southern Gothic are related, obviously, through this word. Gothic is, dark and dread inducing and hint of supernatural and crumbling buildings and dark and
Yeah.
stormy night and brooding antagonists, all these, also it is secrets of the past
Hmm.
and the sins of the aristocracy and all these kind
Yeah.
of family secrets. So Southern Gothic then is just a short pivot to all of those same elements, but in the South, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and they sort of, present a little differently. They can be a tad bit more humorous, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and they deal with different sins of the past,
Right.
obviously, and a different kind of aristocracy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I just love that whole world, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
Gothic or whether it's Southern Gothic, and whether
Yeah.
we got like straight up ghosts like haunting a castle, or,
Yeah.
or whether there's just some whisper of like, ooh, something
Mm.
bad happened on this piece of land,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
there's something in the well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're so fun. You're right. I hadn't thought of how also for Southern Gothic, that is where it does have more humor than like a typical Gothic as well. And there are some like kind of satirical, funny moments with the people in the town.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Yeah.
love that. What fun, right? To kind
Hmm.
of poke a little fun at those kind of um, over the top characters.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that just remind me of? Oh, the I feel like another thing that's kind of common, definitely, probably definitely in Southern Gothic, but other ones as well, is unlikable female main characters. I'm saying this in quotation marks because
Right.
it's
Yes.
not
Right.
unlikable for me.
Right.
Um, but Billie definitely is like making her very own decisions throughout this
Yeah.
whole book.
Yeah.
And was it fun kind of getting to write someone who was just like, I don't have to play by the rules?
Yeah. I love that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
give me an unlikable female character any day of the week over a
Yeah.
supposedly likable one. I mean, the truth is, and it really does drive me crazy a little bit that we have to have these, heroines that are just like blameless, spotless,
Mm-hmm.
like always do the right thing, always do the smart thing, always do, make the wisest decisions, because
Mm-hmm.
who amongst us
Right,
makes the
exactly.
wisest decisions? I have done stupid things in my life. I
Yeah.
have, done things out of wrong or selfish motivations. And I love that about Billie. Like,
Yeah.
she wants to project that she wants to move her family and start over in this small
Mm-hmm.
town for them. And
Mm-hmm.
really, part of it is for her because,
Yeah.
like, self esteem is suffering, and she wants to get
Mm-hmm.
back to um, sort of being that success, the
Mm-hmm.
image that she has of herself. And I don't even think that's bad. I'm like, I think
Mm-hmm.
Billie should just say, hey, I missed this. This is what I want. But she
Yeah.
feels guilty about it. So
Mm-hmm.
she hides it. And yeah, she makes some bad decisions for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But she
It's
has
also in some extenuating
she
circumstances,
has
like,
yeah, she's in a
there's some
tough.
other forces acting on her.
I mean, I had a friend who read the book and she was like, run. Why doesn't she just leave and run? I'm like, girl, do you know what if you got a huge house and 12 acres for
I
$100? That is
know.
very hard to give up.
Yes, it
No
would be.
mortgage? Are you kidding me? No rent,
Yes,
no
and
mortgage.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of it. Yeah. Yeah. I was down for her however she wanted to play that out. Because that would be so hard to say no to right now.
It would be very hard to say no to. I mean,
Mhm.
especially when you have a kid and you're like, this kid needs room to breathe and run and play. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, and her relationship with her daughter is like a really big motivator for her. So in some ways that like makes it make even more sense to me at least.
Yeah. And I think Billy's the kind of person who thinks, okay, well, if this is not exactly what I thought it was going to be, I can make it
Mhm.
work. Because
Right.
she's a fixer and a doer,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
she's accomplished a lot. So I think I think that's part of the reason she keeps staying there. She's like, no, no, we can make
We'll
this
make
work.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. As someone who just like really wants to fix every thread before I like go to sleep, I totally understand that
Oh
concept.
God, me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm an optimist, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
surely this isn't as bad as maybe it is.
Right. Sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's not.
Yes.
Um, so I also have seen, and I don't know if you can talk about it, but I saw that this got picked up and is in development right now. Is there anything you can talk about? And if you can't, you can just cut it out.
Yeah, no, it has been picked up, option for development by AMC TV for a
Mhm.
limited series. And they have, a showrunner, exec producer, Abby Ajayi,
Mhm.
who's amazing and has a lot of great credits and
Mhm.
accomplishments to her name. And that's really all that I know at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my first experience with a television option. So it's all kind of
Yeah.
new to me. And
Yeah.
apparently it moves very slowly,
I
typically.
know. And you like can't get your hopes up, but you're like, I'm kind of
Oh,
excited.
my hopes are up. I am Billie Hope. I
Yes,
am, oh, yeah.
exactly.
I'm like, this is going to be great. It's all going to happen. But yeah, I don't have any news yet. But as soon as I do, I will
That is
be,
cool.
yeah,
Well, I'm hopeful.
shouting
It would
from the
be
roof.
so cool as a TV series. I like it that way compared to a movie. Like you could
Yes,
kind of go in depth more,
yeah, same. And
especially since the
I mean,
backstory matters.
yeah, I was about to say there's some cool chapters about
Yeah,
town in the past, like very short vignettes about
yeah.
how they dealt with certain situations.
Mhm. Yes.
That would be pretty cool, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Well, you can tell we're talking about around spoilers. So if you're dying to know what we're talking around, you can go pick up the book. Um, so do you read a lot? Have you read anything recently that you loved?
Yeah, I just finished Victorian Psycho,
I
which
I've been
is
seeing more of that.
it's insane. It
Yeah.
is, yeah, it's really good. It's a short novel, easy read, and it's very funny. I want to call, I feel like it's a satire,
Yeah.
almost, but it's super clever. And
Mm.
so I really, really enjoyed that. I'm reading a book. I think it's called The Expat Affair by Kimberly Bell. Right now, it's
Oh
not out
yeah.
until June, but she's like, she's automatic fave. She's
Yes.
also a friend of mine's.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. Oh, I'm listening to Sally
Mm.
Rooney's Intermezzo,
Oh,
um,
nice.
which is great. And okay, I don't know. I don't know the name of this. So many books
Those are
I'm
pretty good
reading.
ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for Kimberly's next one. That one, the cover, it
Yeah.
looks so cool too.
Yes, it does. Great
I
cover, and
love it.
she's fabulous thriller writer, and it's set in Amsterdam, which is new.
Nice.
So
Yeah, she's
yeah,
kind of going international now.
yeah, I
I
love
don't blame
that.
her. She's like, I need some more settings.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, she spends half her year there, so yeah, she
Right.
knows what she's talking about, and I think it's a
Yeah,
really cool aspect to bring to a thriller.
it is. It is cool. Um, well, obviously I loved your book, but where can people go and follow you to stay up to date with everything?
I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram at emily.d.c
Hmm.
because I'm Emily Drake Carpenter.
Hmm.
Um, but you can find out everything there. Occasionally I'm on Threads, not as much. Just
Hmm.
mainly Facebook and Instagram. And you can
Nice.
pre-order the book anywhere, and it's out March 25th.
Everybody needs to go get it so you can have it for the 25th. And I'll put those links in the show notes so everyone can find it. And otherwise, thanks for talking with me.
Yeah, okay, thanks. It's been fun. I appreciate it.